Hey guys, kinggath here with Bethesda Mod School. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to release your mod on nexusmods.com. So this will assume you know very little, but obviously if you have a mod to release, it's likely you know something. But there are cases where some of you don't know anything about mod authoring because you were able to generate your mod through a tool such as the city plan tool for some settlements or the workshop framework layout tool that we released recently or will release shortly if you're watching this video immediately after I release this video. So for those folks, I want to walk you through this as if you know nothing, and hopefully that any of you guys who maybe have started tinkering through my playlist but haven't gotten up the guts to go through and release anything, maybe walking through this process and showing you how quick and easy it is will make it a little less intimidating and push you over the edge. So there's a similar tutorial like this for Bethesda.net for those of you who would like to release on both or would prefer to release on that platform instead. But I'm going to walk you through and show you how I do it with, I'm going to use Workshop Plus as an example, not because I need to update or anything, but just because it's a small mod file I have, so all of the processes should go quickly. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is get your mod and put it into a separate directory. So with Bethesda.net, you want it in your data directory, but I recommend when you're getting ready to release on Nexus that you create yourself a staging directory. I always call mine package mods here. I have one of these folders on pretty much every computer that I do modding on, and then some that I don't. Just I love creating these folders. It keeps me nice and organized. And then I'll create a folder for whatever mod it is that I'm going to get prepared to release on Nexus. And then you're going to copy your ESP file or your ESL file, whatever your mod file is. And if you have BA2 files, you're going to put these here as well. For advanced users who are doing stuff like F4SE or have MCM menus, you probably know how to do this stuff, so I'm not going to tell you, but effectively you put all those files in here as well, anything that you want to get added, distributed with the player. Same with faux mod stuff, but I will probably do another tutorial someday in the future about faux mods because that's a pretty complex topic and they add some benefit and some other tips on packaging more complex mods, but for the majority of you, this will be what you're going to have. If you don't know how to create BA2 files, I have another tutorial on how to do that. For those of you guys who are doing things like the city plans, you don't have any of those files. You're just going to have an ESP or an ESL file. So once you've got all the files that you want packaged here, and another little misconception and something I see some people do when they're packaging their mods is I'll sometimes see people put everything into a data subfolder. That is only necessary if you're including loose files. If you are doing file, and actually even then, I don't think it's required for most mod managers. I think most of them understand everything has to go in the data folder. So I think I don't think that there's a reason to create a data subfolder. Someone could correct me if I'm wrong, but in general, I don't bother with it. It seems to be that all the mod managers can handle without it. So we're going to go ahead and package these up. So whenever you got all your files done, however many there are, you're going to grab them all and right click and add them to a zip. And I believe Windows has that by default. Yeah, compressed zip folder right here. So I have 7-zip installed. I also like to use that. I have all sorts of stuff installed on my right click menu. Most of you probably won't have the same size, but if you just right click and go to compressed zip folder, and then it'll give you an option to name it, and it should name it based on whatever the last file was usually, I believe. So that happened to be correct for me, but if it gives you a different name, just name it something. As long as you do zip, that will work. Now, if you have something like 7-zip, doing it as a .7z will be a smaller file size, so 7-zip. So let's compare that because it's not always the case, but generally, yes, it's a little bit smaller. And if you have a substantial number of files, then the difference can be pretty noticeable. And you might think that shouldn't be a big deal for PC players on Nexus, but there are some people who have limited bandwidth where having shaving off a few megabytes here and there can be helpful to them. So in this case, kilobytes not a big deal, but 7z if you have it, great. Otherwise, .zip will work just fine. So once you've got that file, you are ready to head to Nexus and upload. So once you're on Nexus, you're going to go ahead and log into your account if you're not already. If you don't have an account yet, one of the things people assume by Nexus's account sign-up wizard is that they have to pay. That is not the case. When it asks you to select the type of account, you can just opt not to choose any and it won't charge you. But you're going to click this upload button and then hit upload a mod, and then it will bring you to this screen, which I already have up. And the only reason I'm not just clicking it right from here to show you is earlier when I did that, it brought up a bunch of porn mods on my screen, and I had no idea why. I assume I probably have my adult settings turned off or something, or on this computer. I don't know. Doesn't matter. The point is I have this up. This is the screen you're going to get. All right. So then we're going to go ahead and choose a category for our mod. So we're going to do settlement. No, let's do, maybe they call it workshop. Nope, they don't call it either. Player settlement, that's what they call it. There we go. And we're going to skip these next two. So you can suggest a category if you find that the category that you want isn't available there. Then you're going to just enter a name. So I'm going to go ahead and just name this the same as what I'm actually. So I'm going to go through the upload process, and then I'll just delete this later. And then here, choose your primary language that this is in. The version, this versioning is not controlled by anything. You can do it however you like. I tend to use a 3-point versioning system. Most software devs will use a 4-point. It's totally up to you. Usually for my little mods, when I just release them, I'll just do 1.0 as my version, but totally up to you. Author or team name, this is going to show up separately than your actual username on Nexus. So the username on Nexus will show up as the uploader. So the author or team, it could be somebody different. So for most of you, it'll probably just be your same name. Then this brief overview, this is what shows up on this little portion. So if we were looking on hot files or down in the search down here, it's just this little bit that shows up below the, so yeah, actually I can compare those two. So we've got mod name, that's this right here. Then next is the category right there. Then you've got the author, then the uploader, so that's the actual account that's logged in. And then down here, this section right here corresponds to this brief overview. So we'll say workshop enhancements. I'm not actually going to release this, so it doesn't matter. And well, obviously it already is released, so I'm not re-releasing it. Then your detailed description, that is what is in here. Let's go ahead and go to somebody's mod here. That is all this stuff down here. That is the detailed description. And this brief description also gets pasted here. So the stuff that we post right here, brief overview, also gets put under about this mod right here. But the majority of the description, that's this major thing, goes right here. It does have BB code support, so you can do things like image embedding, video embedding, some basic stuff. You can even go into BB code mode, but you need to just have something in here. This is just an example description. I would advise that if you actually put a lot of work into your mod, that you also put a lot of work into your mod page if you want people to download it. And I'm not talking about putting in hundreds of hours or anything, but make it look decent. And especially if you're a brand new mod author, take the time to head into Photoshop and make something nice. Take some good screenshots from the game. Just make it look as professional as you're capable, and it will go a long way to adding credibility to your mod. Make it more likely that people actually give it a try. Next up, you have some classifications. It's pretty rare I ever find myself actually checking in any of these. I mean, like the whole game is extreme violence and gore, so I find that unnecessary. Nudity, skimpy outfits, and sexualized content. These tend to be for the filters that Nexus has set up, so you can check in any of those you find necessary. Same with some of this stuff. I think these all have to do with filtering type things. So, and then these two at the bottom, save game files. I think all of this is just about filtering. It's just to help their search tools. So if any of this stuff is true, go ahead and check it in. But you don't, like, for example, requires Fallout 4 VR. Don't check that in just because your thing happens to use VR. Do compatible with VR. Just make sure all of these are matching. Or like if you're including MCM files, but you don't require it, then don't check that in. All right, so then let's go ahead and hit next here. Oh, got an error. There's already a file in the days with that name. Oh yeah, your files have to have unique names. So we'll test. We'll name that workshop plus test. Okay. Go in here. So you do have to have unique mod names. That's probably a good thing, so people aren't cheating and showing each other others mods. So okay, here. So unlike Bethesda.net's file size recommendations, the ones on Nexus are actually accurate. So this first thing here, the mod header image, that is this image up top here that gets kind of faded off in the background. So all this fading and gradient, that's actually done by the website. The not necessarily the fading on the sides here, that was done by the author, but as far as actually maybe it wasn't. There's a lot of this fancy fading and stuff is done by, oh yeah, see, here's their base image. So yeah, all that gradient fade away, that's done by the website itself. So you don't have to make anything fancy like that. Just upload, whatever your logo images or whatnot in this file size, 1400 by 400, and that'll go up there and look kind of nice. Then you can start adding your various images here. Now I'm going to upload, let's see if I've got an image I can grab real quick here. Oh, nope, not from there. Let me dig into my pictures here. I'm just going to grab a random image because I want to show you guys how to mark your hot files image, because that's always fun to have. Let's find here, sure, this thing will work. Uploading museum preview. So once this finishes uploading, So there's two things you're going to want to control. One would be the main image that shows up here. I'm sorry, not here on the, let's go back to the home page and come on, please, no adult mods. I should have disabled that in my system. I don't know why I have that still enabled. But make sure this image right here, so this little thumbnail image that shows up, or in larger, if you make it into hot files, this little image that shows up, that is controlled by one thing. This your primary image is what you set there. And then actually, I remember there used to be a spot to set a hot file image, but it might just be that it's called that now. That might have been an older version of the Nexus that it did that. So you would upload some large image up here. So we'll go ahead and drop some other thing in here. Let me see what I've got in my collection of junk. I'll just use the same image again. Sorry, I'm not getting creative. I have so many images in here. I have no idea which of them are for stuff from secret projects or personal things. So I just don't want to grab the wrong image. Let's see here. So let's load. That's too big. Okay, so it does actually enforces the actual pixel. So that's interesting to know. I had always assumed it had some sort of in-browser editor, but I've never tried uploading a random image. But anyway, you can upload that. That's your header image. And then you don't have to add any videos. So we'll go ahead and hit save here and then go next. Go back and hit next. And at any time after you fill out that first page, you actually have a mod page created, and you can go to this view mod page to see what it looks like so far. So you can figure out where things are corresponding to. So you can see where all those data points are. So at any time you can, and then as you hit save in here, you can refresh this page and see how it's updating. So you can add log files and change logs and readme files. You can upload those here. You can skip this step though, totally unnecessary. The media, I think, is required. I think you do have to have at least the thumbnail image, but I don't think the rest of it is required. This stuff is not required. I usually leave all this stuff as default. The one exception is I like to turn off the bug tracker. I don't like the bug tracker that's built into Nexus because it's based on old forum tech, and it's just not comfortable for me to use. So instead, we use our own website for that, for some settlement stuff. I would recommend, if you're not going to turn on the bug tracker in here, at least set it up so that it's either set it up maybe locked so people can see that you're working on stuff, or at least pay attention to your comments, and because people will post issues. If you do decide to leave this public, it's probably a good idea for newer mod authors just to make sure that you get access to those issues and people take you seriously. Just make sure you keep those updated. Go periodically, go through and purge and mark down the ones that you've completed. I would generally recommend leaving all these things as default though, especially for new mod authors, because your first step when you're releasing mods is you need to build up some credibility in the community, and that'll make it more likely that people download more of your mods in the future. Now, this distribution stuff here, you can actually click this in and type in specific permissions, but this should cover most of your bases. So the defaults are what most of you guys would want, but make sure you read through those and pick things that would correspond. And then you're also going to want to make sure if you used any content that wasn't yours, so if you included some art assets from another mod that you have permission for, make sure you describe that in the credits here. If you decide to give permission for things on your mods for people to reuse, and you borrowed assets from somebody else, make sure you put an exemption in there for permission instructions that if they want to use those assets, they need to contact the original author, things like that. Be very careful with this, with anything permission. If you're going to give people permission to use, or if you're using other people's stuff, you don't want any enemies in the Nexus mods community. You will get shut down very quickly. So the next thing you can do here is, if you already uploaded to Bethesda, you can check this in right here, and then it'll give you an option to put in the ID of the page. And so that is, let's see if I got one of these up. It's this little digit code right up here if you've got a mod already, and you can plug that in for the Xbox and PS4 to make it easier. And then lastly, allow donations to your file. That will have let's see if some of these people have that up or not. The donations is to allow things like, to allow people to get premium membership donated or cash donated through things like PayPal. I think most people end up turning this on. There are some people who just have a hard stop. No, I don't want donations. I don't want any money involved. Kudos to them. That's if that's what they want to do. I'd say why not? There might be people, maybe you've got a knack for this and people want to shower you with gifts. Why not? Why not accept them? And then you can decide where you want the donation button. Personally, I just put it on everything. Maybe you guys find that too intrusive or you find that irritating. You can choose which ones you want that on. So then we'll go ahead and hit save here. Now, there's one thing to note. There's another thing in addition to donations, and that is I think it's donation points, I think they call it. But there's another spot you set that up, and I actually don't remember where to do that. If I will make another video for that once I know it, because it could take me 10 minutes of digging around the site to find it. But there's another spot you can enable the donation points, which is a system that Nexus has in play, where based on the number of downloads, they basically give out points, which can be redeemed for cash or Steam keys and whatnot on Nexus Mod. So there's actually, you know, a little, I wouldn't call it revenue sharing, but there's some little gifts you can earn through Nexus by having mods up on here. So you probably want to set that up. But I know part of it is done on your wallet and your profile somewhere in here. So you guys should dig around and find that. The next thing, you can check in the DLC that you require, and then you can add in any mods from Nexus that are required. So we could type in something like some settlements here, and it'll bring up a search, and then you just click on them. And then you can type in specific notes, and then all of that stuff will get put under requirements here so they can see it though. So the one thing that's weird about this requirements page, and this is always very confusing to me, is note that this section says mods requiring this file. This is something I've reported in Nexus that I found very confusing. See, this mod does not have any known dependencies other than the base game, but it also shows when any external mods. So if you were to go to Sim Settlements page, mods requiring this file, there's just dozens of them, and so that it can make your page look kind of cluttered. So be aware of that, is that this is just a confusing thing in the design of Nexus, but you should put all of your required mods there because people need to know what they should have installed. You can set up here other resources. So if you wanted to put something like F4SE or some other external assets that maybe aren't available in Nexus and you needed to put them, it's pretty rare that that would be the case. Mirrors, if you have your mod available to download somewhere else, you could put it up here. Again, not something I assume most people will do. I think most people here are just going to check in the DLC and then any mods that are required if they happen to have that. Now, Workshop Plus does not require some settlements, just so everybody knows. But I'm just typing in something to show the process here. And then lastly, we get to the last page you actually need to fill out. So in reality, all you actually need to fill out are your mod details section, add a couple of screenshots, and then this manage files. These other things I've been showing you, you don't have to do it. You can skip those. You can just hit next on them. The default options are fine. The file name, this is something you need to choose. Usually I will just name it the same as my mod and then add a version number. So, you know, we could just do workshop plus, oh, come on, test, and we'll just do version 1.0 and then the file version. And this is to help players organize themselves so that they can actually know which version they're downloading. There is a version field on the actual mod page, and you know, you might assume, why isn't this just checked in? This is the latest version. This is what I'm uploading. But Nexus also supports an optional file system, which is why they have this, so that you might not be updating your main mod page. It might be just updating a little side file. And then for this, I rarely type in much unless I have multiple optional files, but generally just something like main mod file is what all I put in here. I think you're required to put something in here. No, see, it's optional. So you don't even have, you could probably just leave that blank for most of you. But if you had optional files, you would want to describe the difference between the different files that are available. Next here is these two. Generally, I would say this is if this is your only mod, you're going to want to select this, set the file as the main vortex file. That means for people who go to download the mod, most people are going to download, they're going to click this vortex button, and it's just going to launch vortex, download the mod right in, and make it nice and easy for them. But if you have a mod that's, say, a save file or some other thing that should not be downloaded by Vortex, shouldn't necessarily be put right into your data folder, you might want to hit the remove with manager button, and then that'll make it so only the manual option is available. And if you're using an optional file, if you're uploading an optional file, you don't want to hit this main vortex checked in. But I think most of you guys, if this is your first time uploading, you're going to want to check this in, and you're going to leave this thing to main files. But for people doing optional files, that's where you would do it. But I think if you're doing that, you're an advanced user. And then finally, we're going to take our little zip file we created, or 7-zip file or whatever, and just drag and drop it on here. Wait for that to load up, and hopefully this will be nice and quick. And then once you've got it, this little blue thing, you can save the file. We'll hit save here. Let that finish. And then we're going to go down here and go to next. And then articles, this is where you can type more information. We're going to skip that, and we get to the publish screen. So now you hit I'm ready, publish my mod, and it will go up, and it gets dropped off right on the, where are we at? Let's go back to the home page. It will get dropped off. You'll immediately see it appear right here in the new today. It'll be in that first little slot immediately after you do that. and then hopefully you get enough people to endorse it. And if you get, I think the way it's based on a velocity system, so the more endorsements you get in a short period of time determines when it shows up in hot files. But that, a lot of people will say live or die in hot files. If you don't make it to hot files, then your mod's going to die, and that's probably true. But you know, I wouldn't take it to heart. What I would do if you don't make it into hot files, which exposes you to a lot of people, if you're extremely proud of your mod, you can do things like reach out to YouTubers who play Fallout stuff. You know, maybe someone like Juicehead, or me, if you want me to promote your mod. If I like it and use it in my playthrough, I always will talk about it and show it off. And then the other spot, or the other way you can get more notice, is to engage with the people who comment on your mods. You'll find that those are going to be the most likely people to help push you forward. So then maybe they missed the chance to endorse early, but people who are complimentary to you, you know, maybe next time you release a mod, ask them to check it out. Maybe they'll endorse it right away, and then your next mod maybe can make it through to that hot files gambit. I would say most mods that are that do something useful or that are clever will make it into hot files. I think the hot file system is designed fairly well. It's designed to try and prevent it being spammed by, you know, the jokey mods and like texture upscale mods and just like these random low effort things is what it tends to prevent from getting pushed up there. But that's a whole nother topic, but I just wanted to talk about that because hot files is one of those things like a lot of people want to get into, and some people get disappointed by it when they don't make it in right away. But as soon as but most people, I think once they've got a couple of mods under their belt that and they're good to their users, they're going to make it to hot files naturally, just because people are going to want more stuff from them. But okay, that's all I'm going to do. Ready to publish my mod. And then after you've done that, your mods will show up under, let's see, where is it? Mods, and then my mods. And then you'll get a whole list. Actually, I think I can safely show. I don't think I have any unreleased mods on here that I can't show you guys other than this Workshop Plus test. Yeah. So then you get this little page, and then from here you can do things like click manage files if you need to upload new versions or upload new pictures under media. So you get this nice overview system where you can get access to them. So unlike Bethesda.net, where you can lose your mod, you cannot on Nexus. Your unpublished mods will show up here, and you have this shortcut to publish. So that's it. It's that simple. Like I said, a little more complicated if you've got a lot of files or if you're doing loose files. But I think if you're that type of person, if you had to figure all of that stuff, you'll have no problem figuring out where to put them in order to release them. So for most of you guys, you're probably just going to have, you know, just an ESP or just an ESL, and maybe you've got a BA2. You're zipping them up and then just following that wizard on nexusmods.com. It's nice and simple. So hopefully more of you guys will release mods. Love seeing new stuff coming out.